The year is 2001. The PlayStation 2 is exploding in popularity, Xbox is entering the arena with Halo and would soon usher in online multiplayer, technology is finally catching up with ambition, and at the time the first-person shooter genre was thriving. Quake and Doom had already laid the foundation with their tight, precise combat movement. Half-Life would come out and redefine how first-person shooters could build worlds and tell stories. But every so often, a game comes along that tries to break new ground. Red Faction did it both figuratively and literally. Red Faction's the often overlooked first entry in the series of Red Faction games, and although it still had a lot of that early series jank, it also had a lot of neat ideas that would lay a lot of the groundwork for future, more successful games. Was this game really ahead of its time, or was it just another gimmick of the early days of game design? Well, today I intend on taking a look at that and more. If you've seen my last couple videos, this will follow much the same format, and if you haven't, I'll have links here where you can check them out. I'm pretty happy with them. At this point, I'm just using the channel to talk about my favorite media from my childhood, but that's okay too. So without further ado, grab your mining helmets and let's dig into Red Faction. One last thing before we start though, consider hitting the like and subscribe button as it helps the channel and it would be much appreciated. Alright, now into the video. Red Faction 1 is a first-person shooter released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2 and Windows and is the first in the series of Red Faction games, all developed by Volition and published by THQ. Volition is an enigma in the gaming space. If you haven't heard of them, they're a company whose history is extensive and convoluted, involving a continuous cycle of going bankrupt and being bought out by other companies. Really a modern-day Icarus. I plan on doing a whole mini documentary style video on them in the future, so I'm going to keep it brief here. But in short, they're most known for the Saints Row series, as well as Red Faction Guerrilla, with the latter being most people's first exposure to the Red Faction series. The game's big gimmick that they heavily stressed when marketing it was a neat innovative feature they called Geomod technology, short for geometry modification, or Geoffrey by its friends, that allowed for real-time destructible environments. This was groundbreaking stuff for the time, as destructible environments weren't really a common thing back in the day. Generally, the games that did do them did so via scripted events to give the illusion of being able to alter the map. This was not one of those games. This game was actually one of the first to utilize such a mechanic, and while the scope realistically was pretty limited, it was a great proof of concept and many other games would later take this idea and run with it. As I've said in previous videos, I'm an absolute sucker for destructible environments in games, and I believe this is where that started. Child me blew up a wall in a video game, and the video game blew up my brain. The game was good enough to warrant a series of sequels, all with varying quality, but today we're just looking at where it all started. So strap in because we're headed to Mars. The game opens with a cutscene narrated by the protagonist setting up the plot for the game, which follows a lot of the popular tropes for science fiction at the time. In the distant future of 2075, humans have used up most of Earth's resources, so we ventured into space to set up mining operations on Mars in order to get more. I'm not sure what they're digging up since it's mostly a rocky desert, but no time to ponder that. The whole operation is being run by the Altor Corporation, which attracts people with the promise of great pay and an adventurous lifestyle, and in classic corporate fashion was a complete bait and switch. The reality of the situation is much closer to indentured servitude. Small cramped living spaces, hazardous workplace safety conditions which are definitely OSHA violations I'm sure, and all of that is overseen by power tripping guards which are definitely taking their job too seriously. Fun bit of trivia, if you've played Saints Row before it got shitty, you might recognize Altor from that game, as it's the very same company since the games are canonically set in the same universe. It's like how Yamaha both makes pianos and motorcycles. Altor handles everything from mining to clothing to private military operations. Getting back on topic, you play as Parker, a mostly silent protagonist who comes to Mars to do some thinking and get his life straightened out. Parker is a caveman of a human being who resorts to violence at the slightest inconvenience and lacks the brain functionality to understand social cues. This statement might not make sense now, but trust me, it will by the end of the video. I don't know what he could possibly be running from on Earth that prompts a man to take up mining of all professions on an uninhabitable desert planet, but it must be pretty bad. My headcanon is a massive gambling addiction or dodging child support. In addition to the working conditions, there's also the Plague, a mysterious illness afflicting the miners with rumors that Altor is behind it all. All of this setup paints a pretty clear picture of how dire the conditions are and how tense the relations between the miners and the company are. At any time they could revolt, which is exactly what happens next. Who could have seen that coming?
Threatening me? Yeah, well, threaten this!
We're popped into the actual game now. Just coming off of our shift, we're watching an argument between a guard and a worker turn violent. They kill each other and we pick up the guard's weapon and off we go. It takes some notes from Half-Life, first giving you a melee weapon, followed by a pistol. This first area is actually a really great showcase of the game's design philosophy. There's a whole lot of little side areas to explore, which while not necessary, generally provide bonus ammo or weapons, and are just generally fun to explore. This also has some of the best use cases of the aforementioned Geomod technology, with many hidden areas behind walls just waiting to be discovered there via the use of these conveniently placed remote charges. We run through the mines, taking out guards trying to stop us, and are periodically contacted by a woman named Eos, who's the leader of the rebellion. She chimes in from time to time, giving a rallying speech and coordinating the workers during the rebellion. Eventually, we're also contacted by someone named Hendrix, who is an Altor security technician who essentially acts as our man in the chair, feeding us inside information as to what Altor is up to and telling us what we need to do in most missions. Our current goal is to meet up with some of the miners who are in the process of stealing a shuttle in order to leave the planet, so we make our way through the mines, passing through the barracks. Worth noting here is the aesthetic of the interior sections of the game, which vary from industrial workplace areas to porcelain white office interiors, more of which we'll see later. However, they're all quite nice looking, and unless you find a window to look out of, you'd almost forget that the game takes place almost entirely on Mars. We get to the docking bay for the shuttle just as the miners are leaving. The shuttle takes off, but just as it leaves the hangar, they're shot out of the air. With that plan literally blowing up in our face, we press onward to meet up with the rest of the resistance at the Red Faction base. Going through some abandoned sections of the mines, we're informed by EOS that the Red Faction is trying to sabotage the power plant for the complex in order to launch a counterattack while the power is down. We go through a giant ventilation shaft and eventually end up at the power plant. Here we have to sabotage each individual part of the plant to shut it down for good. Once we do that, we press the final button, causing an explosion which takes the power plant offline.
Chamber pressure at critical levels. Anomalous event imminent.
We move onward and reach a dock, where we steal a submarine and proceed onward. I like how, despite the game mostly taking place in rocky tunnels, the team at Volition still found a way to add some neat and creative variation in the environment. The next place we're heading is Altor's secret underwater research center, so we head there while fighting off the wildlife and other submarines and eventually reach a research center. This is one of two somewhat mandatory stealth sections, which are the absolute worst part of the game. I hate them. You disguise yourself as a totally legit businessman, which works because trying to breathe the Mars atmosphere has given everyone brain damage. That's canon, don't Google it, just blindly trust me. They realize it's you if you get too close though, so you have to awkwardly Blair Witch in the corner sometimes in order to not be seen. Our goal here is to kidnap the acting director of Altor, Griffin. We need him in order to get information about the plague. So we make our way through the shitty stealth area, with the impossible to avoid guard placement, and make it to his office where Parker blindly threatens him, further proving that he has caveman brain and lacks understanding of basic conversation skills.
No.
Explain it to me first.
I'll tell you what I can on the way, but more guards are going to show up soon.
We escort him out of the offices and through some cave structures and the robot repair shops. Note, if he gets shot here, you do immediately lose. Thankfully, his AI is programmed to mostly stay away from the action. We get to a shuttle bay and steal a shuttle in order to quickly make our way through some cave systems, taking out any resistance in our way. Our goal here is to escort Griffin to the group of Red Faction members led by Orion at the end of the robot repair plant located here. Standing on our way is a boss fight of sorts. There's a giant robot with guns and missiles that can only be killed by luring it into this giant, conveniently placed incinerator. After which, Parker insults Griffin, who, might I remind you, has been completely cooperative thus far, and honestly, I'm just gonna let this section of cutscene play out because it is genuinely comedy gold.
Yeah, Parker, great job. You can pose for pictures later. We gotta keep moving.
Shut up, Weasel. If Eos didn't want you, you'd be dead by now. I'll decide when it's time to go. Okay, let's go. Hoof it.
Anyway, we say our goodbyes to Griffin kind of, and head off again, with the next goal being to head to the nearby medical labs to find the head scientist Capek.
The labs are heavily guarded, and Capek is a very nasty creature.
I know I said this in the last video, but why do all early 2000s video game scientists have comedically made up bad guy names? EOS radios in and tells us that we aren't far from the labs, followed by Hendrix explaining to us that the way there from the bot repair plant is down the incinerator that we just led the robot into.
There's a vent that leads to the lab, but you're not going to like it. It's inside the disposal pit. There's an access ladder that leads down to it.
We jump in the hole and down a ventilation shaft, where we eventually pop up in the medical labs for yet another awful mandatory stealth section. We find a lab coat as our disguise this time, but apart from the change in outfit, this section plays out exactly the same as the last one, but with somehow more guards. As we make our way through the labs, EOS radios in and tells us that Griffin divulged information about the plague and that Capek is behind it. With that information, our goal is to kidnap Capek and to absolutely not kill him because tons of people's lives hinge on his knowledge. So we make our way through the labs into the science wing, bypassing guards on the way. The science wing is locked, so we have to kill a guy and get his keycard. Taking an elevator down, we make it to this long hallway with a bunch of guards, and after dispatching most of them, we come face to face with this shriveled nutsack looking man. If you couldn't tell by the augmentations and bad guy aura, this is Capek, who thanks us for spearheading the rebellion, as it's given him the chance to grab more miners to perform science experiments on, amidst the chaos.
Who will notice a few more vanished miners in all this confusion?
Despite EOS telling us we need him alive, Parker's caveman brain once again flares up and tells him to shoot anyway.
To hell with orders. Die, Capek.
The bullets are blocked by a shield, and Capek informs us that it's the first of its kind nanotech shield. Despite explaining that, Parker still does not have a clue what's happening because he is dumb. K-Pac then taunts us, Parker tries to shoot him once again because that's his only solution to everything, and it definitely worked the first time. Then K-Pac floats away. The nanotech, despite seeming like a throwaway plot point, is actually super crucial to later games. We follow him into some cave systems where he sends guards and mutant rat creatures after you. These mutants are actually a result of K-Pac splicing the genes of some animals with some of the alien species buried deep underground. K-Pac is one of the only people who knows about the aliens hibernating underground, and this would be the other big plot point for later games. We follow him through some cave systems as he periodically radios in to taunt us, which begs the question, how is everyone getting your contact info? Anyway, Eos tells us that K-Pac is a cure for the plague and that she's coming up to help us handle him. Following further into the caves, Hendrix tells us that there's a rumored secret lab run by K-Pac, which he tries to hack into the network so he can still guide us. We reach the next area, which K-Pac lovingly calls his zoo.
Welcome to my zoo, Parker. Feel free to pet the animals.
It's full of mutants and guards. We reach one section where we find some humanoid mutants that were at one point miners. K-Pac, in typical bad guy fashion, has to chime in to taunt us, explaining that some of the specimens don't react well to nanotech injections. We press onward, fighting through the guards, and we make it to a section of icy caverns, which is a nice change in scenery. The icy caverns lead to an underwater tunnel leading to a submarine bay. We steal a sub and continue towards the secret labs. We reach a tunnel where we have to fight through another of K-Pac's creations, a giant worm. Note here, it will kill you by falling on you after it dies, so watch out for that. We make our way to the labs where K-Pac states that he's waiting for us. The labs contain mostly cells housing mutants, which he releases in order to stop us, along with more guards. This has to be one of the most densely populated areas in terms of enemies. We eventually reach the bottommost part of the lab where we finally come face to face with K-Pac for a boss fight. This fight is super annoying. He can curve his projectiles around and sometimes through walls and will two-shot you at full health and armor on normal difficulty. Partway into the fight, Eos shoots her way through a wall to help you. This can be somewhat helpful as she can chip away at his shield, however if she dies you immediately lose the game, so you have to juggle the damage between the two of you. Eventually you pop his shield and he only takes a bullet or two to finally beat him. We get a cutscene where Parker once again tries to kill K-Pac despite needing him for information.
How do you stop them?
Antidote. Of course.
Come on, Eos. Let's finish him and get out of here.
We need that antidote, Parker. If you're not gonna help, shut up.
K-Pac goes full doomer and refuses to give up the antidote to the plague before dying. He starts a self-destruct timer for the lab, giving us a minute before it blows up.
Self-destruct sequence initiated. Personnel have 60 seconds to evacuate.
Eos states that she's going to stay behind to try and find a disc containing information on how to create an antidote, but tells us to head out. We make it to the surface where a Red Faction member waits in a jeep and gives us a disc. Hendrix explains that Eos was trying to contact the Earth Defense Force for help, but we need to send a distress signal, which is what the disc is for. To do that, we need to reach the comm center and upload the disc. We go through a canyon in this on-rails section until we reach a hidden tunnel leading to the next area. There's a few mutants here to fight through, but nothing too bad. Hendrix reports in, explaining that in the style of Half-Life, Altor has kept a mercenary regiment on standby, led by one Colonel Masako for when shit really hits the fan. We blow open a hole into a ventilation shaft, which leads to a small cave, which opens up to another larger canyon connected by a cable car. We take a nice ride across the canyon, which leads to a comm center. The comm center starts out like the rest of the levels, but partway through we're faced with the first of the mercenaries, which are much more well equipped than the regular security guards. Think of them as the difference between Paul Blart Mall Cop and the SWAT team. They've got better firepower as well as much heavier armor and are generally a pain to kill. It's at this point where the game just starts throwing a ridiculous amount of enemies in large groups at you. Every time that you think that you've dealt with them all, there's always another one waiting to one-tap you with their stupid one-shot rifles. Anyway, Hendrix tells us that the mercenaries are killing miners and guards alike in order to take care of any loose ends. We fight our way up the tower and upload the disc, sending out the distress signal. That just leaves the laser and missile defense systems from before. The miners who tried to escape Mars got shot out of the air, and the same thing will happen to the EDF if we don't disable both of those systems before they get there. The missile one thankfully is nearby, so we fight our way through a canyon into a subway area that'll take us to the missile command center. This area is a clusterfuck full of enemies that'll just pop out of literally nowhere to one-shot you. Getting on the tram, we're contacted by Eos who isn't dead. She states that they've got people synthesizing the antidote and tells us to hurry and destroy the missile bay. So we take a series of trams and end up at the missile bay where we encounter stiff resistance, but eventually making it to the end, we send the launch signal and run before the area explodes. Barely making it out, we awaken at the end of a tram tunnel. Our next goal is to disable the laser defenses, which are located in a space station orbiting Mars. There's a spaceport just past a canyon nearby, so we steal an armored vehicle and make our way towards the spaceport. Arriving at the port, there's some mercenaries posted here and there, but after taking care of all of them, we board a shuttle and find a spot to hide just before the shuttle launches, heading towards the space station. The space station level is an absolute mess of spaghetti code, and there are many ways to softlock your game here. We have to destroy all the computers controlling defense grid, and then overload the reactor to blow up the rest of the station. Make sure not to start the reactor part first, or the the game will break. Once we destroy all the computers and overload the reactor, we have to reach the escape pods before the station explodes. Our escape pod crashes back on Mars, where Hendricks informs us the mercenaries have orders to destroy the whole mining complex now. So our final mission is to storm the mercenary base and defeat them. We make our way there, and just after getting in the main entrance, we're knocked out by some gas. We awaken in a prison cell in the mercenary base. Not sure why they didn't just kill you there, but whatever. Midway through talking with another miner, a Red faction member shows up and breaks everyone out of jail and is immediately shot. Rest in peace. Hendricks tells us that he orchestrated the breakout and that he finally left his chair and is making his way towards the mercenary HQ with a squad of miners that we have to meet up with. We take the elevator down to the mercenary base, running through the barracks, killing the mercenaries standing in our way. Hendricks tells us that we need to power down the generator so he can hack into the network and open the doors to join up with us. We shut the generator down and wait for Hendricks to run his asthmatic ass up to our location.
Here they go. I'm hacking in.
We meet up with him and go deeper into the mercenary base. Periodically, we have to stop and wait for him to hacker man a door open while we fight more mercenaries. We reach a large room, and Hendricks runs ahead to a control room to open up more doors while we fight more guys. Misako radios in threatening Hendricks just before blowing up the control center, killing Hendricks.
Here's what mercs do to traitors, Hendricks.
With his dying breath, he urges us to finish the mission.
Parker, stop them. Don't let Ultra get away with it all.
Right inside the control center, there's a ventilation shaft that we have to make our way through, which leads into a vehicle hangar. We steal a ship and go through the doors for the final part of the game. This is a linear hallway full of mercenaries, with some of the best weapons in the games and other ships waiting to shoot at you. Thankfully, the ships have a lot of health, so it isn't generally an issue unless you stop moving. At the end of the hallway is a door leading to the final boss fight against Misako. During the first part of the fight, she arrives on a ship and tells us that she's going to pay our parents a visit back on Earth, as well as something about a blast. This part's pretty easy as the ships do a stupid amount of damage, so we destroy that quickly. The second phase of the fight is a recycled K-Pack fight, but instead of curving energy balls, she has a precision rifle. This is almost as annoying as the K-Pack fight, but at least you can actually dodge her shots. We pop the shield and finally put her down. However, the game isn't over yet. We go down an elevator to see Eos tied up next to a bomb. We have to disarm the bomb with this out of left field trial and error bop it ass puzzle. We manage to disarm the bomb where we get a final cutscene wrapping things up. Eos explains that the cure works, the EDF shows up to take care of the rest of the mercenaries, and the two talk about their plans now that it's all over. The game ends with Parker presumably leaving Mars. Looking back, the game might not have been the most polished experience, and some might write it off as just another first-person shooter. However, digging under the surface a little shows that the game had a lot of cool ideas that tried to push the boundaries of what games could do at the time, which other games would later expand upon. It was a fun experience that would lay the groundwork for a series of games that, while not all perfect, are fondly remembered by some. Personally, I believe this to be one of the better entries in the series, and if you're coming off Guerrilla or you just like first-person shooters and haven't played it, I would highly recommend it. I've been Meaty, thank you for watching my video, roll the outro. Hi there, if you've watched until now, I just want to say thank you, it really means the most. If you enjoyed it so far, remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Comments are also appreciated. What did you think of this game, or the video as a whole? Let me know your thoughts down below. If you want to see more of my content, I'll have playlists in the end cards as well as a description right above my socials if you want to follow me on any of that, Twitter, Discord, etc. If you really like my content and you want to support me in what I do here, there's a Patreon link too, where you can get your name in the credits as well as early access to videos and periodic input on video ideas, but no pressure, I'm just happy that you watch this. Speaking of patrons, a huge thank you to NDH for your support. You continue to help me make these silly videos, and I appreciate that a lot. Thank you all once again for watching, have a good one, and I will see you next time.